Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a wrap up of 10 books that I've recently read. I'll have content warnings in the description box down below in case it's something you need, but without further ado, let's get through these 10 books that I'm very excited to tell you my thoughts on. So the book that we're going to start with is Watermoon by Samantha, Sotto, Yambao. I saw this book absolutely everywhere, and so I wanted to get in on the hype and try it myself as well. This one follows this young woman who's taking over a magical pawn shop that her dad is retiring from, and this pawn shop trades in people's bad choices and decisions that they regret for something else. And it's about what happens when she wakes up one day on her first day of taking over the pawn shop and the place is ransacked and it looks like something has been stolen. Now, I found this book to just be a mediocre, run-of-the-mill okay read, and that has a lot to do with the fact that this is a very, very whimsical book. It is so whimsical that I feel like a lot of it doesn't really make any sense. All of the consequences, all of the stakes are removed because anytime they face a magical issue, anytime they face a magical problem, there's some magical solution that we just don't know exists until that very moment. So they kind of pull it out of thin air and then they're like, this is our solution. And so there really is no stakes because I believe that they can just make up any solution to any problem that they fall into. The world building is very wishy-washy, and while it is lovely to experience, it just didn't really make me sink into the world, make me really feel like I'm there. There are so many things about this book because it also moves at such a fast pace. It is speeding from the beginning to the end. There is no moment to catch your breath. There is no moment to sink into the emotional moments. It's just going, going, going. In fact, even you reach the climax of the book, the very pinnacle of the moment that you've been waiting for, and it just steamrolls right past it. And I'm like, whoa, 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 this is what we were going towards. Like, give us a moment here to feel the emotional impact. So that didn't quite work for me. I also struggled, I'm sorry I'm just listing them off here, but I also struggled with the romance because it was very insta-lovey. They see each other and in that instant moment they're attracted and they think there's something special about this person, so they fall in love quite quickly, and then there seems to be some kind of love triangle situation, but it's obvious who she's going to end up with, it's obvious who she's going to choose, and so I just wasn't a big fan of anything in particular. But I can't say that this book did something dangerously wrong that makes me think, oh, it's problematic, or oh, this book is awful, or oh, nobody else is gonna like this book. I can see why other people would like this book. It just didn't work for me personally, and I think the best word for me to sum up this book is inoffensive, because it's not doing anything particularly wrong, but it's not doing anything particularly right either. It was just a read, and to be honest, I did get through it quite quickly. It's easy to read, you can breeze through it, and the fast pace helps that because you're just going, going, going. So yeah, that's how I felt about Watermoon, and it just unfortunately wasn't the one for me. I've already rather extensively talked about this book in a vlog, so I'll try not to give it too much time here, and that is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I'm a huge fan of TJ Klune. I've read several of his books now. This is one of the older ones that I had not gotten to yet. Under the Whispering Door is about this man called Wallace. He's terrible, he's horrible, he's kind of the Scrooge of the law firm that he's in, and one day he has a heart attack and dies. And when you have a heart attack and die, apparently you get sent to this tea house, which is on the cover here, and that tea house is the crossing place where you get ready to move on to the next stage. And there is someone there who is the person who helps you cross, and that is who Wallace is spending his time with, who he is working through his stages of grieving for himself and actually also learning to become a better person. Now, I will leave the link below to the vlog where I read this and I let you know my thoughts, but of the TJ Klunes that I've read, this is the one where I found it to be the most middle of the road one for me, and that is largely because a lot of this book is dialogue. They have a lot of conversations, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think the best way to move through grief, or one of the best ways to move through grief, because there are multiple for different people, is to talk through it and to have those conversations and to work through the emotions that you're feeling. And so I very much agreed with the fact that these characters needed to talk, needed to communicate, needed to air out their grievances, but it did mean that a lot of this book was little action, little happenings, and it felt very slow paced and it felt very stagnant, and I really, really struggled with the conversations that they did have because it felt like they were going around in circles. Someone would be like, this is how I'm feeling. Why are you feeling that way? Because of this. Can you explain this to me? No, not yet. And then later on in the story, when it becomes convenient, then they would move that conversation further. So it was just like, why can't you have all the conversations at once? Which I know is not how life works. And yet while I was reading it, I was feeling that kind of frustration. That said, I did really like Hugo, who's one of the main characters. He's the one who helps you cross, and I think he was a character who was very patient, really sweet, really genuine, and I enjoyed getting to read from his point of view. The ending of this book is what I call frustrating, but a good ending. It was frustrating for reasons that I cannot explain without spoiling it to you, but I was just like, oh my gosh, really? Really? But then also I was like, that's heartwarming, that's lovely, that's exactly the way that I want this book to end, and it made me feel all soppy and smushy and sad. Bittersweet. TJ Klune knows how to make endings bittersweet, and this one does that very, very well as well. I also liked any mentions of tea. There's something with tea in this. It's set in a tea house. Of course those things make sense. But yeah, I did struggle with how slow this one was, and I think that is my main reason of why I feel like this was an okay one. Moving on here, we have When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. I gave this one 5 stars. It became a new favourite, an all-time favourite, and this book is perfect. It is perfect. I have no notes. I have nothing I would change. I love this book so much. In this book, you're following Demeter. He's very mysterious when you meet him, and he is traveling to this area to redeem a magical flower. We do not know why he wants it, but we hope that he gets it. We end up rooting for him, and it's about why he needs that flower, what he's going to do with that flower, and how he is going to use it. Now, let me tell you about this book, because Veronica Roth's writing in this is absolutely beautiful. It is beautiful. This is Veronica Roth at the peak of her writing. Every single sentence was delicious. The lyricism in every single little line had me so happy as a reader. This is a novella, by the way. I read this very slowly because I wanted to sit down and savor every single snippet of a sentence that she gave us. That is how beautiful the writing is in this one. And I forgot to mention that this is largely leaning on Polish mythology, and I was very curious about why Veronica Roth was writing Polish mythology, but her grandparents are Polish and she has that heritage behind her. And so she explores this whole world, which is urban fantasy essentially, of Polish mythologism living within the current world as well. So you see that overlap with these two very different worlds. I love urban fantasy. I think it's a genre that needs to make a comeback because I used to read it as a teenager and I miss it a lot, and the world building was impeccable. I have so much admiration for authors who are writing novellas who can give you a snippet, a moment within 200 pages in one world, but still demonstrate and explain the vastness of the world beyond what we get to see of it, and that is what Veronica Roth does very well in this particular book. The themes, when it comes to the end of this book, you see how everything comes together in a way where you're like, oh, that makes so much sense, oh, there were clues, oh, there were hints, oh, we should have seen it coming, and yet, and that is the feeling I exactly want to have by the end. And when the end comes together, it also brings together all of the themes that Veronica Roth is actually pushing in this book, and I feel like pushing is a very forceful word, but that she is talking about and discussing in this book. And I was just sitting there like, yes, yes, queen, I love it. I love the themes that she brings up here. I love the ultimate message, which I don't want to tell you because I want you to discover it for yourself, but I was like, this is such a good message. I love it. I think it's really heartfelt, and the way that she brings us on that journey means you cannot misconstrue what her meaning is here, and I appreciate that a lot. I just love all of the characters. I love seeing them interact. I love seeing them work together. I love seeing them have their conflicts and differences, and especially I love having a little ship. I am a fangirl at heart. Like I read books and I talk about them all like reviewy and whatever, but I am truthfully a fangirl at heart, and so there was a ship that I had in this. There were two characters that I wanted to see get together. This is not a romance. There's a plot, there's characterization, there's a journey, and that is the story that you get. But I still had a ship nonetheless, little cute little gay ship, and I was very, very happy being able to ship two characters together. Speaking of character journeys and character arcs, you immediately are on side with Demeter. You always are rooting for him and wanting him to have what he's aiming for, even as you don't exactly know what that thing is that he's aiming for. And I appreciate seeing his character arc in this one because we do get to see a sense of the full arc. We get to see how much he grows from the first page of this to the last page of this, but you also really understand that that character arc you're seeing is just a snippet of his whole lifetime and everything that he's experienced. Kudos to Veronica Roth, could not have done this book better, 5 stars, cannot wait. There is going to be a sequel, which I'm very, very excited for. Then I need to talk to you about Neon Gods by Katee Robert, and this is the first one in a steamy Hades and Persephone retelling, and this is a series where there's other Greek mythology figures having their steamy retellings. This is one of my favourite iterations of the Hades and Persephone story within a steamy setting, and I really had a good time with it. This is fun, you know, you read this in the same way you read Sarah Simone. You don't think about it too deeply, you read it, you have a good time. Now Katee Roberts, let me get into it. So in this one you've got Persephone, and she finds out that her mother has given her hand to Zeus, but Zeus is a terrible guy. She is supposed to be his husband. Nah, she's not standing for this. So she decides to run away and run into Hades' underworld and into his hands basically. And she decides that if she fake dates Hades, then it'll make Zeus very jealous, and also because of this treaty that's set up, Zeus cannot come after her, yada yada. Basically, her and Hades are fake dating to make Zeus jealous, and Hades is trying to make it seem like he is the one who's kidnapped her and possessed her, whereas Persephone is actually there of her own choice and her own will. And also to prove that they're really together, they need to enact what Hades usually does with his partners, which is very, very steamy, public-y BDSM behaviour, pretty much what this book is. And I had a great time. I really like when my steamy dark romance has an element of plot. I like a plot, I like a story, I like a rounded book. I don't want steamy scene after steamy scene after steamy scene, regardless of how good they are. And so this book gave me what I wanted. It gave me a plot, it gave me Persephone, who is a character that actually has a backbone. And one of my favourite reasons of why this is my favourite iteration of this story is because it's all Persephone's idea, it's all Persephone's making. There is no man controlling her narrative. She is doing her best to control her narrative here, and I liked that she was given so much autonomy in this book. Wonderful to see. Hades was a lovely little grumpy, thinking he's a man that's an island guy who is clearly not a man who's an island, and who clearly has many thoughts and cares about his people. And I just loved seeing him slowly unravel, slowly melt, little Ice King melting. We love to see it, and so I had a good time reading this. The steamy scenes are steamy. You know what? Do you know what? There's nothing better than a steamy scene where the author calls things what they are. And I will always applaud Katee Robert for doing that. They're good, they're fun to read, they're really nice. And what I will also say for this book in particular is that it makes consent hot. It makes consent so hot, and it shows you how, especially within BDSM dynamics and concepts, and also in situations where certain things are happening in public, consent is really important, but also doesn't have to detract from that moment, doesn't have to detract from the heat and the steam. And so I really like that Katee Robert managed to pull that off. What I will say is this book perfect? No. You gotta, you know, go into it and be having a good time. Does it really make sense how the Greek mythology figures are erected and chosen in this book? No, it doesn't, and you don't want to think too much about it, otherwise you'll realise that there's some world building that is very, very glossed over. And also the ending happens very quickly, and it's a little bit convenient, and it all wraps up really neatly in a bow, and you're just like, what just happened there? Whatever, it's fine. You had a good book, you had a good time, and that's how I feel about this one in particular. I had a great run of books because the next one I want to talk to you about is Skandar and the Phantom Rider by A.F. Steadman. This is the sequel to Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, which I read a little while back. I'll try and find my review or wrap up where I include my review of that one. And this one is a middle grade fantasy series where we are following Skandar, who really wants to be a unicorn rider. He tries to hatch a unicorn, and when he does, he ends up hatching a spirit unicorn, and that specific type of unicorn is banned and seen as terrible because of what those unicorns and their riders did in the past, and also because there is somebody who is evil called the Weaver, and the Weaver is also this particular type of spirit wielder. Now that is the synopsis that goes on with the first book, but I am going to try my best to talk about the second book without spoiling anything. And I gave this 5 stars. It became a new favourite. It's absolutely a fantastic middle grade book and middle grade series. In fact, I like this sequel even more than book 1, which always impresses me because as a typical standalone reader, I want my series to be getting better and better with each book. What I really liked about this one in particular is that the world building is even more extensive. I see why people are saying this is the middle grade to read. If you're missing a little bit of HP in your life but you don't want to support that author, this is what you can be reading with your kids, because it is set in a boarding school where they have magical powers and where there's these creatures, these unicorns. There's some really good themes in here. There's much better representation. There's mental health, illness representation, there's anxiety representation, there's black characters, there's diversity. So I think this book is just better in my opinion, but the world building is just so extensive, and this one has built on the world building that we get to see in book 1 and just brought it all the more to light, all the more depth to the unicorns, all the more depth to what they're doing. In this one, I am an adult reading a middle grade series, okay? That comes with some predictability, that comes with me being able to see what is going to happen. And so I was merrily reading this and thinking, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm calling all of these shots. No, this plot went in a direction that I completely did not see coming at all. And I was just there like, wow, the children are going to have their minds blown because my mind is blown as an adult reader. So that was a lot of fun for me. In this one you can see better than you could in the first one, where you've got a plot that's overarching throughout the whole of the series, and then where you've got a plot that's overarching just in this particular book. And I like that she's managed to fuse those two sides of things together, those two threads of plot. I like the characters so much. Skandar, who is our main character, has grown so much since book 1, and yet he still does so much growing in this one in particular. And these characters will make mistakes, this friendship group will make mistakes, and yet you see them grow, and my heart was so soft because this friendship group is like a found family, and my heart literally could not take them being so supportive of each other. What I love most about this, like other than the friendship group and the found family and how supportive they are of each other, none of Skandar's friends are secondary characters to his main character story. Yes, they are the secondary characters to us, but we see each of them have their own problems, have their own storyline, have their own struggles that they have to get through, and how that interconnects and weaves with Skandar's. It's just perfectly done. It's just so perfectly done. And I love the moments where you get to see them just be kids at this school, and the joyous moments, but also the sad ones, the heartfelt ones, the suspenseful ones. I just feel like I know these characters so well, and like I could imagine going to school with them and being part of that group, and how much love they have for each other. It is so beautiful to read about. Yeah, so the plot is great, the characterization is great, the world building is great. What more could you want? What more could you really want? As we're now halfway through the books, I'm going to tell you about 4 books which are exclusive wrap-ups to my Patreons. If you subscribe to my Patreon at any tier, you can get an access to my reviews for these 4 books. Thank you so much to my Patreons for subscribing. It means the world to me, and it really helps me out a lot. And these 4 books in particular are Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, Children of Fallen Gods, also by Carissa Broadbent, Rose House by Arkady Martine, and also Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. So if you want my thoughts on any of those books, head over to my Patreon. The link is in the description box down below. But without further ado, let's continue on to the other books that I have for this wrap up, because we got 5 more to get through. I have got here Finding Bear by Hannah Gold. This is another middle grade, and this is a middle grade contemporary that explores environment, and specifically focusing on climate change, climate warming, and polar bears. And it's also the sequel to The Last Bear by Hannah Gold. So in this one, we're following our main character, this little girl who had a very good connection with the bear from book 1, and in this one she discovers that Bear has been injured, and she wants to go and find him and make sure that he is okay, even though she no longer lives in the Arctic and her life is very different. I liked this one, but I didn't enjoy it quite as much as book 1 in the series. For this one in particular, it felt a bit like the pacing was off for me. The beginning was very, very slow, and so I struggled with the beginning to get into the book. Then the middle was sublime. I love the middle. I have zero complaints. That is perfect. And then the ending was very, very rushed. Like the first 20 pages, a lot happens to tie everything up quite neatly, but I think the pacing was just a bit off. That said, the message in this one, the actual story itself, is very good. I think particularly for children, if they're reading this and they enjoyed book 1, they are going to enjoy book 2 just as much. I think it's me as an adult reader not enjoying book 2 as much as book 1. So I'd still recommend it to your kids, and I would still recommend it to students and whoever you are giving this book to. I think what it does very well is that it gives those fun facts that children like about the Arctic and about creatures and animals, but also it is a really good discussion and talk on climate change and the ways in which you can make small choices, the way that children can make small choices that will impact and support the bigger picture, while also removing some of the guilt from them and acknowledging that larger companies in particular are the ones who really, really need to change, and how you can be an advocate and a leader for that without taking on the responsibility of, oh, I need to change the whole world. And I think when you're writing environmental stories for children in particular, it's really important for it to be hopeful, and I think this book manages to be hopeful, which is really nice. It also shows a lovely connection between an animal and a person, and I think that connection for certain children is really important and really nice to see, so that was a fun side of things. But there's also a lot here about family dynamics shifting, because in the first book you've got a single dad and his daughter, and so the family dynamic is shifting and changing in this particular book, and I wish that there were more conversations had between the daughter and the dad, because they don't really talk, they don't really communicate about this, and she goes on an inside journey and changes her mind or changes her attitudes, but I do think that communication would have been lovely to have seen on the page. There are illustrations in here by Levi Pinfold, and as always those are gorgeous illustrations and just make every moment in this book better. So yeah, I had a good time. Then I read a very short, quick book, and that's Miss Ice Sandwich by Mieko Kawakami. I've never read this author before, and I thought, let me give it a try. And Miss Ice Sandwich is about someone who makes sandwiches in a shop, and this little boy buys them from her and is quite fascinated by her. And it's about his feelings towards her, but also his feelings towards how people treat her, because she's had some work done on her face, we gradually learn, and people are quite mean and quite cruel to her because of that. I read this and it just wasn't really one for me. I didn't dislike it, I just read it and finished it because it was so short. My main issue with this is that it's a stream of consciousness writing style, and I wouldn't say that I don't like stream of writing consciousness style, but having a child point of view do that stream of consciousness just didn't really work for me, it just didn't really gel for me. It was a nice enough story, it had a nice message to it about beauty and about acts of kindness and about how you show appreciation for people while they're there, while you have them, while you have that moment, because our main character, who is a child, is also grieving in some sense, and also the friends that he makes are grieving in some sense. So it does have a lot of these themes that I think were managed to be like pretty well tied in for something that is so short and so to the point and has such a simple premise, but it just didn't quite tick my boxes. It didn't quite work for me. I didn't quite feel very passionate or moved by this as I think I should have been by the end of it. So I'm marking it as an okay read, but one that other people might enjoy more than me, and it was nice to read something translated. I read one of the oldest books on my TBR, which is very shiny, and that is Klune by Juno Dawson. This is a young adult contemporary about somebody who is addicted to drugs, and she's very rich, and her family stage an intervention and they send her to this remote island to get over her drug addiction. It's like rehab for her. And on the island there are people who are addicted to different things that she kind of intertwines her journey with, whether that is food, whether that is something to do with mental illness. So check your content warnings for this, I will have them down below, and it's about her journey. And I think this is quite a difficult topic to tackle in a YA. Drugs and addiction, some people shy away from exploring that and they think children shouldn't explore that. Some people are like, children need to know the truth, and I am very much on the side of children should know the truth and know what happens, and children can become addicted to these kind of things. It was a very good read. This one won me over. I struggled in the beginning, and that's all on me. I personally struggle with unlikable main characters, and our main character here is very, very, unlikable. And she's unlikable for the reason that she's addicted to something, and when you become so addicted, that addiction takes over. It kind of mutes your personality, it mutes who you are, because you are addicted to this one thing, and you will do despicable things to get access to what you're addicted to when people are trying to stop you from getting it. And so in the beginning, she's truly terrible. I really struggled with her. I couldn't connect to her, couldn't relate to her. I thought she was so mean and awful. But what I really like about this book is that if you stick with it, you see that development, you see that addiction peeling off of her, and you see her true character come through. And while her true character is not all sunshine and roses, it's somebody much nicer. It's someone that you feel for, that you feel so much sympathy for, because they're hurting so much and they've been treated so badly. And I really just appreciate seeing a very, very good character arc like this one gave us, and such good character development. Very, very well done, Juno Dawson. Very, very well written. The plot has a plot. Even though it's a very character-focused book, you can see that there is always something happening that keeps me turning the pages, that keeps me reading. And the relationships between these teenagers as they're on the island and they're coming and they're going and they're trying to get over their addiction and they're relapsing or not, all of that brought enough to the story to make me intrigued, to make me keep reading, to make me want to know what's going to happen next. Did I think the ending was a little bit convenient? Yes, I did, but I didn't really mind. Actually, no, I don't think the ending was convenient. I thought the ending went on a bit too long, but that was fine because I was already immersed in these characters, I was already immersed in their journey, and I was there with them every single step of the way. I think this was really good. I liked its depiction of mental health, I liked its depiction of therapy, and I really, really liked that you've got a range of diverse secondary characters. You've got some queer characters, you've got some black characters, fat characters, you've got a trans character, which is own voices rep because Juno Dawson is trans as well. So it feels like a very well-rounded story. It languished on my shelf for a while, but I'm glad I read it when I did in the end. We have another 5-star new favourite in The Forest of a Thousand Eyes by Frances Hardinge, and this is illustrated by Emily Gravett. This is one of those all-age picture books where there are loads and loads of illustrations in here, but also there's quite a bit of text as well. And all of the illustrations have a green and black and grey colour palette, and I really like it when a book has a colour palette like that. And Emily Gravett does lovely illustrations that really work well for the story. This one is following this girl who lives in a house that's far above this magical forest. Something's happened with the environment where we've escalated to the point where it's become toxic and the forest is alive and evil and wants to kill everyone. So she stays on this building that's along a huge wall, and before there used to be different settlements along the wall, but it's been cut off because it's been overrun by the forest. When she discovers a man who lives outside of this building that she's protected in, and she wonders what he's after, and that sets her off on this whole journey. And as I was reading this one, I could exactly see what it was building towards and where it was going, and I was like, my heart, my heart, my heart. It's just such a beautiful message, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful story, and everything about it is beautiful. From the way that Frances Hardinge writes this magical, strange, alluring world, to the message that it gives about supporting each other and being there for each other and recognizing the talents that one person has and how that can help somebody else. Beautifully, beautifully done. And then the illustrations as well just built on that all the more. So actually I don't have much to say about this one. It's a very thematically driven book which has lovely writing to get you along the path of the theme, an environmental commentary, but also on like loving the world and the people in it commentary, and it's done so well. I've got no notes for this. I actually think it's also perfect, and this is the second all-age picture book from both Frances Hardinge and Emily Gravett working together, and both of them I've given 5 stars because they make wonderful stories together. Then last but not least, I want to talk about A Girlhood, Letter to My Transgender Daughter by Carolyn Hayes. And I think when talking about this book, it's going to be very important for me to clarify who this book is for. So this is not by a trans author, this is by a parent of a trans child. The child is young in this one, and it's about what happens when they are faced with transphobia, but it's also about their journey to understanding and accepting and loving their daughter for who their daughter is. Now, it's not going to be a book that I would give to trans readers. It's for the people who need to learn how to love their children, even if their children are different from them. And I think that's the best way I can do it. It's for the parents. I am not a parent. It's for the parents and the parents to be. That's what I would say. Or the parents who want to be parents in the future. Because I think regardless of whether you are reading this for the queer storyline or not, this one is about learning to love your child exactly for who they are and reminding you that your child is not a mini you. Your child is their own person and you need to love them. You need to love them as they are. And I think that's something that lots of parents struggle with, and so I appreciate that this book is out there for them. It's also a book I would love to get into the hands of more Christians. This parent duo, they are Catholic, and I feel very passionate about books where religion and queerness intersect and overlap, and you get to see it done well, because there is so much trauma that the church has invoked, especially for the queer people in the world, and it's just really heartwarming, sometimes a little bit heartbreaking for me, but also really heartwarming to see a Christian depiction of love for the queer community and support for the queer community, and that's what this one gave me. But it's also really a scary book because they do get reported for having a transgender child and for supporting that child's trans journey, and so it's about what do you do as a parent when that happens, and how do you support your child, how do you show love for them, how do you protect them, how do you let them explore and grow into themselves while also trying to protect them from a lot of the hate that they are going to receive just for being themselves. And you have to take this book with a grain of salt. You need to remember the time that it's written in. It starts before a lot of the queer enlightenment that we've had, which still is ongoing and still needs to be done, but it's written before all of that as well. And yeah, I just found it to be a moving journey and an important journey that I think a lot of people are going to take a lot of value from. I do think at times it does get a little bit repetitive, so it does repeat some mantras, it does repeat some messaging a bit, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes you need to hear something 1, 2, 3 times before you really take it in, and so I appreciate that it spreads out its repetitiveness. I also think the most interesting thing is the first half, where she's talking about her own experiences and what really happened to them. The second half turns into a bit more of a joyous love letter to the trans queer community, also to trans education and trans health, and also to trans history. And I did learn some things while reading this book, and I think some other people will, especially if it's their first touching point for some trans, I don't know, experiences. But I don't think this is necessarily one you read so that you become informed on trans history or trans joy. I think those stories belong to trans people and those narratives belong to trans people, and we should support trans authors in that. I think this one is definitely more recommending for the parent skew on it rather than anything else. So that's what I'll say about this one, and there you have it. Those are all of the books that I've recently read. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Have you read any of these before? Have you got interest in reading any of those? And let me know what was a book that you recently read and enjoyed. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!